Good morning and welcome to the Asheville City Council work session for American Rescue Plan Act funding. My name is Esther Mannheimer and I'm Mayor of the City of Asheville. All council members and applicants are participating virtually. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city's website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone by dialing 855-925-2801 and entering the meeting code 2109. For those of you joining us today, welcome. I'll now go through and introduce all council members and staff leadership. Council and staff, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Vice Mayor Smith.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Kilgore.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Mosley.
Hello.
Councilwoman Roney.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Turner.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Whistler.
Hello.
And our city manager, Deborah Campbell.
Hello.
Our city attorney, Brad Branham.
Good morning.
And our city clerk, Maggie Burleson, may or may not be on here, but I was told to add her back in. And our assistant city manager, Rachel Wood.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you. Today we'll be hearing presentations from 22 organizations and the city of Asheville who are applying for ARPA funding. Each presentation will be 2 minutes. Applicants, please refer to the countdown timer displayed in the virtual meeting room during your presentation. Also, during today's presentations, I just want to make clear, presenters will not be taking questions, nor will there be public comment. That will come at a later date, and Rachel Wood will be explaining that to us. Staff will introduce each presenter. Presenters, please keep your microphones muted and cameras off until you hear staff call your organization's name. We're going to attempt to take a 10-minute break around 10:50. Someone will help remind me. And I'd also like to remind everyone that this is the first of 2 ARPA work sessions. And I just want to remind everyone, ARPA stands for American Rescue Plan Act funding. This is the congressional funding we're talking about. We're going to have 2 of these sessions. The next one we will hold tomorrow, again during a virtual work session, to hear from the remaining applicants, and that is at 11 o'clock tomorrow. So before we begin with the presentations, I'm going to turn it over to the Assistant City Manager, Rachel Wood, who's going to provide us with a short overview. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is Rachel Wood, Assistant City Manager. I'm going to just provide a quick overview of what to expect during today and tomorrow's work session presentations. As the Mayor mentioned, there are going to be 2-minute presentations from each applicant that are going to be facilitated by staff. Assistant to the City Manager, Jamie Matthews, will be introducing applicants, and then they'll have 2 minutes that are really going to serve as an opportunity for those applicants to provide a general overview of the submitted projects. As the Mayor mentioned, just because we only have that 2-minute window for each agency, we're then going to have an opportunity for elected officials to submit requests, and we're asking that you submit those requests to Jamie Matthews by close of business this Friday. Jamie's then going to work with the ARPA team to coordinate with the agencies to get responses to those questions, and our plan is to have a consolidated list of those responses by Friday, February 18th. Following February 18th, we will then schedule council check-in meetings during the week of February 21st to review those responses, discuss next steps, and determine any additional information that needs to be gathered in order to make final funding decisions. Next slide. So a few quick ARPA reminders. The city of Asheville received a total of $26.3 million for this round of ARPA funding. To date, we've already budgeted about $8.4 million of that funding. And I won't go through the list, but the table on the left-hand side of this slide lists what we have already budgeted for. So between today and tomorrow's work session presentations, our goal is to make funding decisions regarding how to spend the remaining $17.9 million of ARPA funds that the city of Asheville has available. So a couple of quick reminders on the federal goals and federal requirements for this ARPA funding. ARPA was established to support governmental responses to COVID-19, contain impacts on communities, residents, and businesses, and lay a foundation for a strong and equitable recovery. Allowable uses under those federal guidelines include public health uses, addressing negative economic impacts, additional pay for essential workers, addressing revenue losses, investments in infrastructure, and crime response and prevention. Next slide. So after receiving those federal guidelines, the City Council then approved funding categories that were specific to the City of Asheville and were used to inform the request for proposals, of which you'll be hearing from the applicants today. The City Council's approved funding categories were established in September of 2021, and they include affordable housing, care for aging residents, homelessness services, small business recovery, food systems, city infrastructure, domestic violence prevention and assistance, community communication, climate change, and workforce development. Following City Council's approval of those funding categories, we then distilled that down into scoring criteria that were used to inform the scores which the City Council received earlier from the evaluation committee. So those scoring categories included equity, community impact for 40%, project plan and evaluation for 40%, and then organizations qualifications for 20%. The City Council has received a few recent updates, most recently August 24th, information on the ARPA program. So I've already mentioned the request for proposals. That request for proposals for potential projects to be funded via ARPA was advertised September 27th through November 1st, 2021. Applicants had the option to participate in a virtual meeting, pre-proposal meeting on October 13th. Then the initial scoring was completed by the evaluation committee in December of 2021. Today and tomorrow, we've got those work session presentations. We'll then, as I mentioned earlier, facilitate any requests for additional information from the City Council with an ultimate goal to have that notice of initial award available March or April of 2022 regarding what our final funding decisions are. Next slide, please. So we have had a couple of questions regarding the city strategy for which projects and programs were submitted as a part of this RFP process. So just wanted to provide kind of a quick overview of that philosophy. Back in June of 2021, we had an internal poll for city departments and different teams for potential city projects based on that federal funding criteria. After the City Council approved their funding categories in September, we then distilled that list down into the proposals that really were most closely aligned with those City Council funding categories. So looking at the spreadsheet that the City Council has, 12 city proposals were ultimately submitted for consideration as a part of the RFP process, 3 of which scored in the top 20%. So you're going to be hearing from those 3 proposals that scored in the top 20% today. And that includes the Inclusive and Accessible Government, Reimagining Transit Safety Program, and Bringing Equity to Local Lifestyle Businesses. As I mentioned, we did have several potential projects that were considered, and they're all real needs across the organization. So we are working on a strategy for those remaining needs, including looking at the federal infrastructure bill, looking at state ARPA funds, which my understanding is are going to be available this spring and are going to be earmarked specifically for utility projects, looking at other federal and state funding sources, and of course, considering these projects for funding as a part of our annual operating and CIP development project process for the FY22-23 budget development cycle. Next slide. So quick overview of next steps. Obviously, after I conclude today, we can answer any questions that the elected officials have before we launch into the presentations. Then you'll hear those 2-minute presentations from the applicants who are from our partner agencies as well as city departments. By the end of this week, we're requesting that elected officials submit any questions that you have to Jamie Matthews, and Jamie and the ARPA team will then facilitate getting responses back to you by February 18th. Then the week of February 21st, we're going to schedule council check-ins to confirm what additional information you may need, discuss next steps, and really figure out what that remaining process is going to look like so that hopefully by March or April of 2022, we can make those final funding decisions on how we're going to spend that remaining $17.9 million and ultimately issue the notice of initial award to city departments and partner agencies who've been selected for funding. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I can turn it over to Jamie to begin presentations.
Rachel, can you go back to the slide that shows us what money has been allocated? I think it was slide 3 that shows. Let's see if you're. Yes. Okay. So for that emergency non-congregate homeless shelter, is that the funds that the city has already spent housing people at places like the Red Roof Inn and the Days Inn? This is not a number holding an amount for the future for the high access shelter discussion we've been having. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe this is funding that has already been spent, but I'll need to look to Deborah, Jamie, or Tony to confirm that.
Yeah, and because everything else on this list is stuff that we have already voted on and allocated. So I would assume it's what we've had to spend already in temporary housing shelters in mostly hotels is what. So what my point is that within this remaining funding, the 17 million, almost 18 million, is not included any money set aside for a high access shelter.
That is correct, Mayor.
And do you know how much the county has set aside of their ARPA funding for the future funding of a high access shelter? I want to say it's around 3 million, but I'm not positive.
We're not certain, but we can get that information for you, Mayor. We'll have it as part of the follow-up of questions that were asked about this.
And I can reach out to them as well, but I just want to make, we've had such a lengthy discussion around that future funding possibility, just to note that it's not set aside in this funding. I think there's some other, Antoinette, I think some other questions.
Councilmember, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Council just received updates regarding the renovations at Memorial Stadium. And at this point, the track that was included in the initial strategic planning for the venue has not been included, despite years of promises and requests from the Easton neighborhood in particular. So for council members' information, I requested a determination as to whether ARPA funds could be used to include a track because the current configuration is not within the scope that was initially contemplated for the venue. The response I received this morning from the city manager is yes, and it likely could be considered under the infrastructure rubric that we set aside, or just based on this side, it also, I think, would fall quite neatly under the public health uses. So while that request is not included, it is my request that council also consider funding a track and keeping our promises made to a community that had already been ravaged by urban renewal and a facility that, quite frankly, was allowed to become dilapidated over at least the past 30 years.
And the price tag, I believe, Antoinette, I think staff provided was around $1 million, right? I mean, that was like
that is what we were told in our check-in. The most recent one is exponentially higher. I don't know the reason for the difference, but yes, that is what we were told, 1 million.
And I believe the capital projects and parks team is working on refining those estimates, so we should be able to provide better estimates in the near future.
Go ahead and jump in. Who else has got a question? Sage?
I have a question real quick. Rachel, you mentioned the infrastructure bill and a $75 million amount. I just have never heard that amount before. That's not what we're getting, is it? Or is that the statewide allocation or?
So my understanding is that the state is going to have a competitive process that we're going to learn more about this spring, where there is $75 million that will be available statewide for water and wastewater projects. And so as we have additional information on that, we'll certainly follow up with you, but that's a potential, particularly for water projects, for us to apply for.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions before we get started with the presentations?
No, but I did want to mention one more thing for council's consideration. As the chair of the Home Consortium, I do want to remind us there's an additional $4.7 million that will come through the Home Consortium. Now that money is allocated across 4 counties, but in the concept of looking at all the funding and the community available, I want to remind us of that. Thank you.
But as we move through these presentations, do we have any way of identifying which ones of, that's going to be, that's why this is such an incredibly challenging process and why it's going to have multiple parts to it, because there are lots of other funding sources for some of these projects, and we'll need to be able to figure that out as we prioritize funding them. If they're eligible to receive and likely to receive funds from some other pot, we'll need to know that information.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll move into the 2-minute presentations. Our first presentation is Meredith Schweitzer from All Souls Counseling, and that's proposal number 4.
Good morning, members of City Council and City staff. I'm Meredith Schweitzer, Interim Executive Director at All Souls Counseling Center, located in downtown Asheville. We're a nonprofit that has been serving the community for over 21 years, providing quality individual, family, and couples therapy on a sliding scale for those who are underinsured and those who are uninsured. We never turn a client away for inability to pay. And our team of 18 licensed therapists address issues such as depression, anxiety, trauma, PTSD, addiction recovery, and so much more. Outside of our agency, there are very few options in the community for the uninsured to access more extended one-on-one counseling. This pandemic has exacerbated existing mental health issues for Western North Carolina and our entire world, and especially for marginalized communities. MAHEC reported a 4-fold increase in depression and anxiety among adults from July 2020 through July 2021. Buncombe County reported that the number of domestic violence survivors seeking services in the county rose a staggering 614%. In May 2021 compared to the previous May 2020. Being victimized by an intimate partner increases a person's risk for depression, PTSD, substance use disorders, eating disorders, and suicidality. Trauma-informed mental health treatment is critical for domestic violence healing and recovery, and it's also a key protective factor in domestic violence prevention. Likewise, the relationship between mental health and unemployment is bi-directional. Good mental health is a key influence on employability, finding a job, and keeping that job. Our project seeks to address these issues with compassionate care so that our clients can more fully participate in the community in healthy and productive ways. If approved, our grant request will fund a portion of our costs for the next 5 years. Thank you so much for your time and consideration today.
The next presenter will be Nora Sheff with Appalachian Sustainability Agricultural Project, proposal number 6.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nora with the Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Project, also known as ASAP. ASAP is requesting funding to support programs at Asheville area farmers markets, including the Double SNAP program and Farm Fresh prescription program. Double SNAP matches SNAP benefits dollar for dollar at farmers markets. Customers get twice the amount of fresh local food for their SNAP dollar, and that money goes directly to local farmers. We have been working with markets to expand fresh food access for more than a decade and currently support double SNAP programs at 4 Asheville markets. In 2021, SNAP sales at markets tripled. Last year, ASAP doubled $250,000 across 8 farmers markets, which is $500,000 in the local food and farm economy. Every market manager we surveyed reported that the program has increased their market's customer base. To quote a customer, "We always run out of EBT before the end of the month, no matter how simple we keep our diet. Double SNAP is the only way we can afford our produce." ASAP's Farm Fresh prescription program allows participants to redeem up to $20 of fresh produce per week at farmers markets. This program builds on a patient's trusted relationship with their healthcare provider and connects them with healthy food environments. In 2021, the prescription program was a success, with 86% of participants reporting changes to their eating habits. One physician told us, "Fresh food isn't easily accessible for many people. If they don't know how to cook, I list foods available at the market that can be enjoyed raw. Getting there is the most important part. This prescription program gives people that incentive and motivation to come back the next week." Overall, funding will address the high rates of food insecurity caused by the pandemic and reduce financial barriers to purchasing local, seasonal produce. It'll improve health and provide residents a greater connection to local farmers, community, and healthy food environments, and improve the viability of small farms and food businesses selling at Asheville farmers markets. Thank you.
The next presenter is April Brown with the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce Community Betterment Foundation, proposal number 58.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Council, and staff. I am April Brown with the Economic Development Coalition, pitching today on behalf of the Asheville Chamber of Commerce Community Betterment Foundation. Let me tell you about Accelerate Buncombe, a workforce development proposal to eliminate financial barriers experienced by community members who are disconnected from economic mobility and opportunity. Here's the challenge. Today, at least 35% of our workforce are underemployed, which means working full-time for less than living wage. In other words, those who need new credentials the most are least able to afford the gap in employment while going to school without a paycheck. Here's the innovation. Accelerate Buncombe will compensate the students' time during training. Think of this as an accelerated apprenticeship model, or earn while you learn. Students earn $15 an hour during an 8-week training and are placed in full-time employment at living wage or above. Accelerate Buncombe relies on a model of collaboration between the Chamber of Commerce and several local service-based organizations, some of who have joined me on this call, and partner employers in high-demand, high-wage industries. Community partners help connect community members into these opportunities, and employer partners guarantee interviews of all candidates. Our proposal includes several career pathways, including certified production technician, certified nurse assistant, commercial driver's license, phlebotomy, and IT specialists. You may be wondering why we chose these career paths. Let's use manufacturing as an example. While manufacturing wages are on average above living wage and above the state's median household income benchmark, manufacturing employers still need to fill about 1,500 local jobs for currently open unfilled positions. With your support, we can close the opportunity gap. Thank you for your consideration.
The next presenter is Andy Barnett with Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity, proposal number 65.
The importance of a healthy, stable home is clearer than ever. For almost 2 years, home has been our workplace where we teach our children and our haven in a global pandemic. Those who lack a healthy, stable home feel this crisis acutely. Recent studies link poor housing with increased rates of COVID and COVID-related deaths. Council members, to make Asheville more resilient to public health threats, more people need healthy, stable housing. The American Rescue Plan funds are a historic opportunity to invest in housing. Asheville Area Habitat for Humanities proposal is a great way to make that investment. With your support, we can perpetuate some truly groundbreaking results. During the pandemic, we embarked on a first-of-its-kind partnership using the city's Housing Trust Fund to build or preserve 6 homes. 4 of those homes were in historically Black neighborhoods. 80% were sold to African-American households. Through work like this, we help close the racial homeownership gap. In addition, we launched a new program targeting our growing older adult population with a new homeownership product designed for aging in place. Due to changing conditions, including the incredible ARPA award we received from Buncombe County, we've revised our proposal to the city of Asheville. With $900,000 of ARPA funds, Asheville Habitat will help 10 local families own their first home. Habitat's innovative mortgage model creates a path to homeownership for those left out of the market. Habitat underwrites buyers who struggle with conventional mortgages, prepares these borrowers to be successful homeowners, and finances the purchase of their first home on terms they can afford. And we'll make sure that there are homes available for those buyers by preserving existing affordable housing and by building green certified new homes. Habitat's model of permanent affordability ensures that the public investment in our existing supply of affordable housing endures. Our work perpetuates economic integration in neighborhoods where property values are soaring. In other words, we'll help make sure that essential frontline workers in our community can still find a home in our community. Thank you.
The next presenter is Pamela Myers with the Asheville Art Museum Association, proposal number 7.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. I'm Pamela Myers, Executive Director of the Asheville Art Museum. All of you know that the museum and its many supporters successfully built a new state-of-the-art cultural center anchoring the city of Asheville that opened in November 2019. Closing in March of 2020 due to the pandemic, the museum pivoted immediately to serve the community and its many partners in arts and education. Our application clearly outlines many of these creative initiatives, and I won't take your time to repeat them here. The extraordinary museum professional staff, artists, educators, and partners were rightfully recognized by many prestigious awards for their timely and creative response to the needs of our community. Building on lessons learned over the last couple of years and responding to the crisis in learning and engagement loss for K-12 students, college students, and isolation for families of limited means and adults of varying abilities, the museum projects builds a technology and training-based, open and accessible community resource that does not currently exist and is sorely needed to provide equitable access to a multitude of partners and participants. This learning and development hub is necessary to building resources for a newly imagined and challenged future that we will together invent. This project will build on the museum's capacity and human resources to respond to new demands for virtual and in-person programming, while expanding access through outreach programming for new and existing audiences in the museum's service area. And it will provide much needed technical assistance and access to longstanding partners. The museum, founded in 1948, has the experience and track record to successfully implement and maintain this program for the benefit of all community members and partners. We sincerely thank you for your consideration.
The next presenter is Dwayne Barton with Asheville Creative Arts, proposal number 8.
Yes, my name is Dwayne Barton. I'm here to talk about the Blue Note Junction project, community and health business incubator. Since the time we put in this proposal, we have raised about 75% of the money needed to purchase the land. This particular opportunity will allow us to get the rest of the money and to start our second phase of engagement and planning. This project gets its momentum from work, over decades of work we've been doing over here in the Burton Street community. And this project also aligns nicely with the current betterments around the I-26 project that's happening right now in the community. The idea for a business incubator and garden stand was started back in 2009 when we created our first neighborhood plan. This plan was later adopted by the city in 2018, but the business incubator and the garden stand was not a part of that particular plan. So we wanted to fill the gap, connect the dots, and continue to build out the infrastructure in the community, and also allow the community to play a part in the planning, design, of course, the enjoyment of the future community health and business incubator. I want to thank y'all for your time.
The next presenter is Megan Rogers with the Asheville Downtown Association, proposal number 9.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. I'm Megan Rogers, Executive Director for the Asheville Downtown Association. Our downtown is the economic engine for the city of Asheville, Buncombe County, and the entire Western North Carolina region. It's also the center of government, commerce, and culture. It's where we gather, where we celebrate, and where we do business. It's easy to look at our downtown and assume that it's doing great, that it's vibrant and successful, and in a lot of ways it is. Our streets are busy with visitors and restaurants and shops busy with customers. But there are serious growing concerns about our downtown from business owners, locals, and visitors alike. This project includes 2 main components, data analysis and a video series. Our intention is to not only show the value of downtown through data, but also reconnect citizens to their downtown. The data component will include a robust economic analysis of the central business district, as well as in-depth downtown business and resident surveys. It also includes a citizen sentiment survey for those living outside of downtown. We often hear, "I don't go downtown anymore" from locals. We want to better understand why and what it will take to change these perceptions. This component would be managed by a local research firm focusing on businesses and communities that have been historically excluded. The primary purpose of the data piece is to showcase to leaders like you the importance of investing in our downtown to ensure it remains that economic engine for the city and the region. The second component is a video series. The audience for this component is public, and it is intended to reconnect city and county residents with their downtown and remind them that downtown is for them and is for all of us. It will showcase locals, including business owners, employees, nonprofit reps, residents, and other neighbors, all discussing why downtown is important to them. These components will serve to make the case that both public and private investment in downtown will not only aid in its recovery from the impacts of COVID, but also serve to protect and sustain that which makes our downtown unique and special. Thank you.
The next presenter is Megan Rogers with the Asheville Downtown Association Foundation, proposal number 64.
Again, good morning, Council. I also serve as the Executive Director for the Asheville Downtown Association Foundation, which is the 501c3 arm of the ADA. This grant program would provide direct funds to locally owned downtown businesses who continue to face the long-term impacts of COVID-19. In our August 21 survey, downtown businesses indicated that small business recovery grants should be one of Council's top priorities for ARPA funding. Funds would be distributed to assist businesses to rehire employees, repayment of other pandemic-related loans, back rent or other delayed expenses, or equipment or technology upgrades to allow them to compete in the changing market. Small locally owned businesses don't often operate with the same level of cash reserves as those with corporate backing, and many found it difficult to secure other financial aid. This program will focus on BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and businesses owned by other historically underrepresented communities, as well as those that were unable to secure recovery funding from other sources. In the spring of 21, we launched a similar program with Mountain BizWorks as the administrator, and were able to provide 7 grants to BIPOC-owned downtown businesses as part of this program. Awarded businesses included 2 barbershops, a yoga studio, a food cart, 2 retail businesses, and a tech business. This much-needed funding allowed these businesses to sustain and grow throughout the pandemic. For this project, we would continue to work with Mountain BizWorks as the administrator, since they have extensive experience and best practice protocols already in place. I do want to add that I was disappointed to learn that public restroom facilities for downtown did not rank highly enough among city staff proposed projects to move forward. This is widely supported by downtown businesses, homeless advocates, nonprofit representatives, residents, and everyone who uses downtown. I urge you to find a way to provide this basic but necessary service through other funding sources. Thank you for your time.
The next presenter is Amanda Bryant with the Asheville Museum of Science, proposal number 5.
Good morning. The Asheville Museum of Science. Can y'all hear me okay? Sorry, I'm recovering from COVID. The Asheville Museum of Science is one of the few family-friendly attractions in an education institution in our downtown area. On a daily basis, we serve local students and teachers with expert design field trips, residents and guests with age-appropriate programming and hands-on exhibits, and travel to local schools and other nonprofits to partner with them in serving our at-risk youth and after-school and outreach programming. All programs provide science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, also known as STEAM. Amos has been a science leader through COVID, even while our doors were closed to the public for 6 months. We served parents and schools with pods, schools with curriculum and field trips that were provided virtually. We provided expert science experts to the public to answer their COVID questions and to support the city in efforts to slow the spread of COVID. We are slowly recovering, but the devastating financial impacts are impacting our ability to serve our mission. And we are one of the only science and children-like museums in our downtown area. Amos did not qualify for recovery programs such as shuttered venues, and our city's partnership is needed to serve and sustain our needs. We work to remove financial barriers by providing free and discounted admissions and programming fees and camp scholarships to any community member in need. We travel to those who cannot come to us. We're specifically requesting an investment to support science literacy throughout our community. We will do this by addressing the impacts of financial losses due to COVID, making operational updates to deliver top quality science education in a safe way, and by implementing a proven education model that supports a more science literate community and addresses the clearly demonstrated COVID slide learning loss in children that will be present for years. Thank you for your consideration.
My apologies, I got one ahead of myself, but the next presenter is Dawn Chavez with Asheville Greenworks, proposal number 36.
Thank you. With funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, Asheville Greenworks will address equity, climate resiliency, and workforce development program. In partnership with the YMI Cultural Center, Greenworks will launch the Tree Keeper Training Program that will engage young people of color from marginalized communities in a workforce development program to become professionals in the tree service industry. During their training, participants will put learning into practice by working alongside certified arborists on tree planting and maintenance projects in Asheville communities that are most in need of tree canopy to combat the impacts of climate change and COVID-19. In the short term, the proposed Greenworks Tree Keeper program will prepare young people for high-income jobs and careers in the growing fields of urban forestry and arboriculture. With training and certification in tree care, participants will graduate from the program ready for jobs with municipalities, utilities, and in residential and commercial settings. As our area experiences increased development pressures and tree-damaging storm events, professional tree services will continue to be in high demand. The tree service industry is also less susceptible to the ups and downs of the economy than industries such as hospitality and retail services that were hard hit by COVID-19. Program participants will also be improving the urban forest landscape in Asheville over the long term, making communities more resilient to the impacts of climate change, such as extreme summer heat and year-round flooding events. Such resiliency is especially important in vulnerable communities, which will be the target population for urban forestry improvements. As an important form of green infrastructure in our city, trees provide cooling shade, improve air quality, reduce pollutants and allergens, mediate stormwater impacts, lower energy costs, and provide more equitable public health outcomes. Thank you.
The next presenter is Anna Zuvskaya with Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust, proposal number 59.
Good morning, Council, and thank you for this opportunity to speak about our proposal. My name is Anna Zujewska, and I'm the Executive Director of the Asheville Buncombe Community Land Trust, or ABCLT for short. As you may know, ABCLT is the first and only community land trust in Western North Carolina, And we're eager to create as many permanently affordable housing opportunities as possible. Over the last 2 years, we've made significant strides in establishing ourselves as a new organization during a pandemic. Most recently, we solidified a partnership with a financial institution and will be selling our first home in the coming months. At this time, we're also under contract on a home in East End and piloting a program for property tax relief within our focus neighborhoods. With our current momentum, we're positioned to utilize the majority of our housing bond funds this year. Given our current housing market, we know the need is much greater than what we can accomplish with our current funding. Supply of affordable home ownership units is low, and the need for rental units is greater than ever. Homeowners are being faced with increasing property taxes, and many renters are being displaced because their landlords decide to sell. Community land trust units provide a response to both of these challenges. Our homeowners only pay taxes on the purchase price of the home versus the assessed value of the home and the land. Both our homeowners and renters can rest assured that their mortgage or rent payments will remain affordable to them for as long as they live there. COVID has significantly impacted our housing market, and ABCLT's proposal would create at least 10 housing units that would remain affordable in perpetuity despite future market shifts. Most importantly, our work is focused on creating opportunities for people of color and ensuring that our communities are equitable and diverse well into the future. Ultimately, we hope that our model of collective ownership transforms the way we think about real estate. Thank you again for this opportunity.
The next presenter is Alice Naflick with Aura Home Women Vets, proposal number 12.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Alice Naflick, founding director of Aura Home Women Vets. We began funding the nonprofit as to correct some disparities with the difference between men and women veterans, their housing process and services they're receiving. One of the difficulties with women veterans is they do not access their VA benefits. We do a lot of outreach, talking to women veterans and getting them into the VA and getting their programs. Housing is a big issue with homeless women veterans. 14% of women veterans are considered homeless or at risk of homelessness, which leaves the state of North Carolina about 12,000 women veterans that are at risk. Here in Western North Carolina, there's only 20 beds designated through the VA funding for women veterans, vice 244 beds available. We want to close that gap. By having its proposal for purchasing a home will give us stability in having our own place to house women veterans. We would like to have one here in Asheville for proximity to the services of the VA and use it as more of a higher trauma reduction program. We do have property in Hendersonville that we are renovating to house 11 women veterans that are more stable and to work on the program. We have a 5-phase program that has proven successful in our 3.5 years having an apartment here in Asheville. We had a 100% success rate, and they have not come back to homelessness. They've become self-reliant. So our program is proven, and I would love the opportunity to have funding to purchase a house. Thank you.
The next presenter is Amy Cantrell with Beloved Asheville, proposal number 61.
Good morning, City Council and City staff. Thank you as always for your service to our community. I'm excited to tell you about our Beloved Villages project, which is an innovative solution to the housing crisis that combines deep affordability and perpetuity, community wraparound support, sustainability, and most importantly, equity, which helps lift people out of poverty and allows people to remain rooted in the city of Asheville, particularly communities of color. We know that the pandemic has highly exacerbated our housing crisis and put a strain on many people in our community. This project was formed by a circle of people at Beloved Asheville who are living through the housing crisis. I've changed their names to protect their identity. The Geralds, whose grandparents own homes in Asheville, only to see them taken by urban renewal and in 2 generations become homeless. The Ortiz family, who have been preyed on by landlords and who can't access the formal lending system. Ms. Whitley, an elder living on a fixed income who struggles to pay rising housing costs and stay in her home. The Hamiltons, a family of 5 living in their minivan because they can no longer afford housing on the salaries that they make. And in the wake of the death of Janet Jones, who froze to death here in Asheville on the streets in 2016. Impacted people have been a part of the design and development of this project since its inception, and that will continue. Here's what the project will do. Open the doors of home to 48 to 60 community members and 600 square feet, 1 and 2 bedroom units via 2 micro-home villages. Construction of 1 has already begun. 100 to 150 people will obtain new skills and connections to living wage jobs via workforce development and trainings and coaching. We'll create a replication action plan and toolkit to continue to create these kind of homes in our community and evaluate the results based on results-based accountability. Thanks for allowing me to share about this innovative project, the first to combine deep affordability and perpetuity and equity. We hope you have a great day.
The next presenter is Butch Thompson with Blue Ridge Pride Center, proposal number 63.
Good morning. Thank you for your time and consideration. My name is Butch Thompson, and I am the president of Blue Ridge Pride. Our funding request is for Generation Plus, a program of Blue Ridge Pride targeting the LGBTQ community over the age of 50. Issues such as loneliness, access to healthcare, bullying, and housing are just some of the topics to address. The continued COVID pandemic continues to increase isolation and depression, leading to other issues, including health management, food insecurity, and more. 41% of LGBTQ elders report at least one disability. Nearly 1/3 suffer from depression, and 13% have been denied health care or provided with inferior health care. Traditionally, our festival helped fund our programs. The cancellation of the festival for the last 2 years has directly affected our organization and its finances. Our grant proposal seeks to secure a part-time employee to oversee this program. For the last 3 years, this has been done on a volunteer basis, and the need to move beyond a volunteer model is crucial to advancing this much-needed program. Our project includes connecting, engaging, and educating elders through a variety of events, both virtual and in person, provide improved information to the community about the need of the LGBTQ elders and LGBTQ elders about available services and resources in Asheville, improve healthcare delivery, advocate for elders, including training through the certified Pride in Care model adopted by Central Line Aging Organization to local nursing homes, extended care facilities, doctors, organizations, and others. And to build on our partnerships, which we currently work with Land of Sky, Council on Aging, AARP Mountain Region, and many other great providers in this city. And then we need to lay the groundwork for a needs assessment specific to our community. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration.
The next presenter is Nicole Heinbaugh with Bountiful Cities, proposal number 14.
Good morning. Bountiful Cities is an urban agriculture resource organization working on issues of food justice in Asheville and Buncombe County for over 20 years. Bountiful Cities requests ARPA funds across 3 years from the City of Asheville for the purpose of supporting long-term urban agriculture and food systems within Asheville. The COVID-19 pandemic has most severely impacted those already experiencing food insecurity or economic hardship. This disproportionately impacts low-wealth communities and communities of color. It is these communities that are being prioritized to receive the direct benefits of the wide variety of food security and economic development activities within this proposal. The requested funds support 6 Bountiful Cities programs and 1 partner organization, the Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Council. Of this 249,000 request, over 62,000 will go directly toward capital improvement and food system infrastructure within neighborhoods. The remaining funds support the necessary staffing, contracting, and administrative costs associated with carrying out these projects across the city. These funds will support growers at 20 school and community gardens to access over 1,200 seed packets and over 6,000 locally grown and specially ordered plant starts. 10 community gardens will receive a variety of infrastructure support, along with access to shared community food hub facilities. 15 low-wealth individuals will receive year-long education and certification for employment readiness in urban food systems. And over 2,000 elementary students will receive weekly cooking and gardening education. 8 neighborhoods experiencing food insecurity will receive emergency preparedness infrastructure. The infrastructure, education, and services described in this application support an equitable and sustainable COVID-19 recovery in our city by addressing increased rates of food insecurity at the neighborhood level and supporting low-wealth residents to secure living wage employment in our local food system. Thank you for your consideration.
The next presenter is Jennifer Teague with Buncombe County Health and Human Services.
Good morning, City Council members and city staff. I'm Jen Teague, and I'm a program manager with Buncombe County Health and Human Services. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you a little bit about the Active Aging Center. The Active Aging Center will serve as a one-stop shop for older adults, their caregivers, numerous aging service providers under one roof, all with a common mission to empower all people to age in community. The Active Aging Center is a collective impact model approach to creating an intergenerational space to allow older residents the ability to age in place while remaining safe, healthy, and engaged in their community. Since 2019, we've been working on this concept with many community partners at the table. Land of Sky Area Agency on Aging, Mountain Care, Council on Aging, UNC Asheville, City of Asheville staff, MAHEC, and many older adult volunteers across our county. The center will be centrally located with accessible transportation and will include a senior center to address the social, mental, and physical health needs of older adults, an adult daycare and day health center to provide caregiver support and day programs to those caring for a loved one, a child care center to assist in creating intergenerational opportunities and interactions, a congregate nutrition site and food pantry to address food insecurity, staff to assist with housing applications, insurance information services, and more. Clinical services, including pharmacy assistance, well checks, and vaccination clinics, technology and education classes. In this RFP, the City of Asheville requested proposals for projects to help the community recover from and respond to the negative economic and public health impacts of COVID-19. We know that older adults represent one of the most impacted age groups of this pandemic. From higher death rates to increased social isolation, the impact of COVID-19 on the health of older adults has been staggering. Currently, 1 in 4 residents, or 71,000 individuals in Buncombe County, are over age 60. This number is only expected to continue to increase. We're focused specifically on serving these individuals, and we hope that you'll join us in this project. Thank you for your time.
The next presentation will be the last one before we take a break, from Amy Hobson with Caring for Children.
Good morning, City Council and City staff. I'm Amy Hobson, the Executive Director of Caring for Children. With COVID, we've seen an increase in mental health and substance use disorders, and therefore an increase in intakes into Child Protective Services with DSS, when families are really struggling to maintain a baseline at home. Our Angels Watch program is designed to prevent youth from entering into the foster care system. Angels Watch fills gaps in care. This means we provide a safe place for when children have nowhere to go, during a time their parents temporarily are unable to care for them. Because of the mental health crisis, incarceration, they're entering the hospital, or even entering rehab for substance use recovery. Children are placed in Angels Watch licensed homes for up to 90 days, while their family resolves issues that keep them from safely caring for their children. DSS, mental health providers, parents, really anyone can refer a family to this program, preventing children from entering into the foster care system. According to the National Foster Youth Institution, An average of 1 out of every 4 youth in foster care will become homeless within 4 years of aging out of foster care. The program operated successfully for over 20 years, but when the North Carolina budget was not passed for several years, our funding was put on hold and we went into a hiatus. To receive funding once again on a state level, we need to restart the program to again be considered for state funding. This is why funding from the city of Asheville is so crucial, as we do not qualify for any other COVID funding. With your support, this program will focus on disrupting the pipeline of foster care to homelessness by providing a non-punitive, preventative option for families. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, we will now take a 10-minute break, 10-minute-ish break, and come back at 11:10.
Owned by people of color and women in our community. They go beyond hobbies and actually provide critical income support that sustain our families in our community. They represent brilliance, resourcefulness, creativity, and ingenuity. However, they have diverse needs and goals that can be hard to serve by existing business development resource organizations. We like to say every ecosystem needs grassroots, and we see ourselves as part of that business development ecosystem and want to provide support at that grassroots level. We also know that businesses of color have had a disparate impact in the pandemic. They've had little access to relief funding on top of historical structural inequity and a long trend of Black-owned businesses losing space in our community. I want to walk you through what an applicant would experience as they go through the Biz Hero program. So I'm talking about Layla. She's got a home-based natural products business out in Beaverview. She fills out her application. She becomes part of a 6-month cohort and completes business coursework wrapped around with community and support from her peers. She's got one-on-one sessions on business and life resiliency. She attends networking events and even markets where she can sell her products. She puts together a business plan, detailed budget, and a presentation. And at the end, she's eligible for up to $10,000 in a business expense grant and continuing support for 2.5 years. I thank you, and we hope you find our vision compelling and join us to support these businesses that sustain the lifeblood of our community.
The next presenter will be Dawa Hitch with the City of Asheville, proposal number 71.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dawa Hitch, and I have the pleasure of serving as the city's Communication and Public Engagement Director. I am presenting this project to boost inclusive and accessible government on behalf of a cross-departmental team. I'll start with a few key takeaways. 1, this proposal aims to improve access to information and decision-making. 2, community barriers to participation, staff capacity, and aging equipment limit the city's ability to effectively engage with the community. And 3, the investments in this proposal were informed by years of public input. The money requested breaks down in this way: 60% for people, 20% for community space upfits, and 20% for broadcast equipment. With respect to people, the proposal requests funding for both community leaders and professional support. Investments in community leaders would be through Community Engagement Academy honorariums. Investments in professional services would include a contract to manage the Engagement Academy, sign language interpreters, staff to develop social channels in Spanish and Russian, and staff to provide consistency in virtual meeting production and information posting. Funding these roles will fill current gaps in the city's inclusive engagement efforts. Regarding community spaces, the project proposes investing in spaces where community members already gather and feel safe. Interested communities could receive funding to upfit spaces to support virtual community meeting access points. The spaces could be used to hold watch parties for public meetings and act as hubs for community input. The ability to connect with government virtually and/or closer to home minimizes some of the barriers to participation, such as non-traditional work hours, transportation, childcare, and a lack of trust in government. Regarding broadcast equipment, a one-time infusion of funds to replace aging equipment will allow streamed meetings to remain reliably on air and available to residents. In closing, the investments in this proposal have the potential to build community resilience in crises and improve disaster preparedness.
The next presenter will be Jessica Morris with the City of Asheville, proposal number 25.
Good morning, City of Asheville Council. My name is Jessica Morris. I am the Assistant Director of the Transportation Department, and I am here today on behalf of a partnership that includes Just Economics and Anchor Collaborative, and we are requesting funding to create a program that we are calling Reimagining Transit Safety. And the program would seek to create 2 peer support specialists and 1 resource coordinator position that would aid community members at the downtown Asheville Rides Transit Center. A little bit about our riders. 70% of our riders do not have access to a vehicle. Over 80% of riders make less than $25,000 per year. About 40% of our riders are BIPOC individuals, and about 40% have a disability. Currently at the transit station, we have 1 to 2 security guards at the station daily. However, our security guards don't have the resources to address some of the underlying root issues for our transit riding public. And COVID-19 has exacerbated many of the issues that we see that have existed long before the pandemic, such as drug use, homelessness, financial struggles, and health risks. The program and positions we seek to create would focus on providing support to riders and directly address the root of many recurring issues at the transit center by providing access and referrals to mental health, addiction, and social services, while also enhancing transit safety in the process. We are seeking funding to create a 2-year pilot program with the potential to scale and become permanent. These positions would support existing security guards rather than replace them. Partnerships would include Anchor Collaborative, Just Economics, and other interested partners such as MAHAC, Sunrise, Eleanor Health Foundation, and CareReach. And we have a number of metrics that we would keep track of during the pilot program, such as number of APD calls.
Thank you, Jessica. That's 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you, guys.
Our next presenter is Jay Hackett with CityWorks US, proposal number 62.
Good afternoon. Black Wall Street AVL is a membership organization, and we realize with the state of Black Asheville that Black people in Asheville make about $26,000 per year compared to $46,000 a year as the average median income for white folks. This proposal is made up of the 74 Black-owned businesses that are part of Black Wall Street. We got together and asked what they needed to take their business to the next level. This cohort, in this cohort, about 50% of them made less than $20,000 a year. 25% have been homeless, 10% have been incarcerated. And we know that a person who owns a business makes about 12 times more than someone who is employed. So we created our 3-part model, and it's worked to incubate these 74 Black-owned businesses. At the time that I wrote the proposal, we had only calculated revenue of $446,000. But at the end of the 2021, we calculated actually over $1 million of revenue that came into Black cash registers in the Black Wall Street cohort. That made a community impact of $1.4 million using the same calculation as the BCTDA. So we filled a gap by incubating Black businesses and connecting folks with the resources they need to flourish by themselves. By plugging into the $2 billion local tourism economy, our Black folks can prosper right along with the city as it prospers. So we made the proposal based on everything that they asked for in order to grow their businesses. And that's what created this proposal. We just piled everything up and made the request. You see their names in the written proposal. For example, our Black chiropractors need an x-ray machine. Some people need laptop computers. and we want to expand to serve youth during the Black Wall Street Junior. Our proposal also includes a storage shed. We lease a city-owned property, but it's elevated because of floodplain, and we need a storage shed that fits with the neighborhood aesthetic and is properly engineered to match the building and resist flooding. Thank you.
The next presenter is Kate Singogo with Community Action Opportunities, proposal number 26.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Kate Singogo, the Self-Sufficiency Program Manager at Community Action Opportunities. We are a local anti-poverty nonprofit that was established in 1964, and we are part of a national network of community action agencies. Our proposal for ARPA funds is to expand our LifeWorks program. LifeWorks provides intensive, person-centered case management to individuals and families in order to help them obtain training and education, gain and maintain full-time living wage work, and increase their financial capabilities so that they can progress on their journey to self-reliance and move out of poverty. We've been operating under our current model for the past 20 years with a steady track record of success. Over the past 3 years, for example, we've helped 145 individuals gain employment and or better employment. We've helped 44 families move out of homelessness, and we've helped 36 families increase their incomes to move out of poverty long-term. LifeWorks coaches are experienced professionals who will, through this grant, target individuals with justice involvement, those experiencing homelessness, and those negatively impacted by systemic inequities. LifeWorks will rely on key partnerships within the community to accomplish this work. This project will address COVID-19 by increasing the local workforce and helping people get sustainable full-time living wage employment. Community Action Opportunities will contribute 25% of operating funds to this project with community service block grant dollars. CAO is an organization with solid infrastructure. We are a trustworthy steward of funds, and most importantly, we are deeply passionate about improving our community and helping families. We're excited for this opportunity, and we thank you for your time.
The next presenter will be Heather Bauer with the Council on Aging of Buncombe County, proposal number 27.
Good morning, Asheville. Accessibility and dignity with aging in place tools, Project Adapt. COA and partners are committed to address health, mobility, and economic disparities of our rapidly aging population exacerbated due to COVID-19. When we invest in aging in place, the entire community benefits. Even normal societal aging can affect economic growth, patterns of work, family functions, the ability to provide adequate resources, and prevalence of illness and disability. Then there's the COVID. We hear you. Rising costs, increased social isolation, strain on services and supports. She says, I've lived in my home for over 40 years. They say I can't live here anymore since I can't cook for myself. Or the steps are becoming really hard, so I just stopped going out. And I have to choose between paying for medications and paying my rent. By 2050, nearly 20,000 residents in Asheville MSA will require special care due to chronic illness. Home and community-based services are in high demand. Key components are telehealth, embedded community health nurses, and chronic disease self-management classes in collaboration with Givens Life Ministries. 86.9% of Vanderbilt and Battery Park low-income residents have already reported that having an on-site nurse is valuable, over half with comorbidities and more than a third with reported decline since the pandemic. Home modification, enabling technology and accessibility demonstrations, models, and curriculum for consumers and students. Home sharing to address affordable housing, create natural supports, increase companionship, and support the local workforce. We need a $51,000 income to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. Expand home repair services, resource coordination, and care management to reach people earlier in their lives. Meals, produce, wellness classes, supplies, and equipment for Burton Street, Stevens Lee, Senior Opportunity, and the Linwood Crump Shiloh Centers. Storytelling and engagement through advisory groups and in community settings. Let us recover in Asheville where everyone has the opportunity to age successfully. Diverse solutions, diverse population, vibrant economy, equity, and inclusion. What is good for the aging population is good for us all. Thank you so much for your time.
Our next presenter will be Kathy Avery with Eagle Market Streets Development Corporation, proposal number 28.
Good morning. I am a community nurse with Help Today. That stands for Health Engagement Leading to Prevention Today. What we do is work in the community in a door-to-door method that I came up with several years ago. And that way we have people who are in our community that we work with community health workers and community nurses who are trained and serve their communities by being the bridge for the nurse, the community, the doctors for optimal health outcomes, because we're better together. And we believe that there should be nothing done for us without us. And we know during the pandemic that our communities, BIPOC communities, were disproportionately at risk for poor health outcomes. And Help Today has worked to address preventative health and chronic illnesses before, during, and will after COVID. And that way we will have communities that are healthy and productive as possible. And with this funding, that's what we hope to achieve, because we know prevention is what healthcare and government needs to do to make our communities healthy. Chronic illness management is what community health does if we don't prevent illness. So the one thing that we want to do is prevention. And we do door-to-door in senior housing. We know that dementia is large in our communities, or maybe people don't, but that's one of the things that we've uncovered. We've been the transition agency for people living alone that don't have families, or that who have families that can't get involved and don't know what to do. We provided food, mental health, and all the things, healthy food for diabetes management, around giving healthy food to our communities. We've served over 1,000 people in just a short time that we've been an agency. So we're hoping that with this funding, we can continue to expand and work in our communities. Thank you so much.
That was our final presenter for today.
All right, I want to thank everyone for all the presenters who presented today, for joining us. And we are going to do this one more time tomorrow, and we begin, somebody remind me what time. I believe we're starting at 11 tomorrow. Is that right? Yes, you're nodding your head. Good. All right, I got it right. So we will see you here tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.